G'day guys, welcome back to No Man's Sky. I recently made a video on finding a multi-tool with the best supercharged arrangement for damage, and one of my subscribers asked if I could do a video on how to set up a multi-tool for damage in detail. So happy to try and help and share what I've learned. But there is a lot of information to cover and I will do my best to explain it all. So in this video I'll explain how damage works and how to measure it properly to see how effective your weapon really is. I'll run through all the different types of weapons you can use and share the pros and cons of each. I'll also show you how to install the weapons on your multi-tool to get maximum damage, and I'll explain about the upgrades and the adjacency bonuses. And finally I'll show each weapon in combat to give you a better idea on their real combat damage. Please give the video a like if you find it helpful, and maybe even subscribe to see more if you enjoy the content. Thank you, I really appreciate it. Now first of all, you get different bonuses depending on the type of multi-tool that you use. Here's a table I made from the No Man's Sky wiki showing you the bonuses of each multi-tool so you can take a screenshot if you wish. Now I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of these different types, as this video is about setting up your multi-tool for damage. But if you want a maximum damage multi-tool, the two to choose from currently are the staffs and the sentinel rifles. Now the first question I want to get out of the road is, what weapon is best? And the short answer to that is, the best weapon is the one that works best for you. I know this is a bit of a non-answer, but it's the truth. Even the type of enemy you are facing or the location you are fighting in can determine your choice of weapon. And check any social media on the subject and you'll see a huge range of opinions on what people think is best. But you need to remember that for the most part, people will have their opinions based on their own personal experiences, and this includes me. And what works well for one person may be horrible for someone else. So my point is, there's no substitute for trying the different weapons on different targets for yourself and see what works best for you and your playing style. So I'm going to be using the same sentinel rifle that I showed in the original video because it does have the best supercharged arrangement. And the first thing I need to explain is what this number over here means. It's called the damage potential. Now first and foremost, so many people get this number confused with damage output. And I can't make this more clear, this number is not your damage output. In fact, it has nothing to do with the damage you put out when using a weapon in combat. What this number does do is it measures the combined damage potential of all the weapons and upgrades you have in the multi-tool. But remember, you can only fire one weapon at a time. So damage potential is not how much damage you do when firing your weapon. It's just a number to show the combined potential damage of everything you have in your loadout. Now what can make this subject even more confusing is that the multi-tool weapons do not show you the damage numbers like starship weapons do. There is no DPS number to go by like you see in the different starship weapons. So how do you measure actual damage output? Well, the only reliable way to do this is to do it in combat and see the damage numbers pop up on the screen against the type of target that you're facing. And we'll show you this a little bit later in the video. Now just a quick game tip for the Sentinel multi-tool. You can craft and add the normal mining laser to the Sentinel laser, and this will really boost your mining of resources. It also really slows down the overheating so you can use it for longer. Here's a quick side-by-side comparison of the same multi-tool after I added the normal mining laser. And you can see now that the damage potential number has gone from 469 to 1164, with just the laser in there and no weapons. And again, damage potential is not damage output, but you can use it to measure the potential increase of your upgrades if you remove everything else from the loadout and do them one at a time. I'll also show this shortly. But adding this extra mining laser will make your mining much more effective, and I highly recommend doing this on a Sentinel multi-tool. Anyway, there are some rules you can follow when setting up your multi-tool for combat, so let's get into how to set up your weapon. First up, each weapon comes with two types of upgrades. These are craftable upgrades. They're the ones you can learn the blueprint for at the anomaly, and you can craft these at any time after learning them. And the second type are the ones you can buy at a space station from the multi-tool vendor. And both these types of upgrades combine to give you the best damage from whatever weapon you're using. Also, upgrades come in different classes, with C being the worst and S being the best. However, you can also buy X-class upgrades at a space station in a pirate system. Now the stats for these upgrades can be worse than a C-class or better than an S-class, and anywhere in between. What this means is you have to buy and open a ton of them to get the ones that are better than an S-class. Now while X-class upgrades will give you the best damage, you don't really need these. You can grind them out if you want to, of course. I did it on my main save. But for any combat situation, if you use the right multi-tool with a good supercharged arrangement and the best S-class upgrades, it will be more than enough to deal with anything the game throws at you. So you can see here in my inventory I have all the different weapons and the maximum number of upgrades for each one. For this next bit, it doesn't matter what weapon you choose, the same principles apply to all of them. I'm just going to use the pulse splitter in this example as it has an extra upgrade. So the first thing you need to understand is what is commonly referred to as adjacency. And basically this means you get an extra boost to the stats simply by grouping the same weapon type upgrades together. Now adjacency will only work horizontally and vertically. It does not work diagonally. Now I know I said damage potential number is not your damage, however, we can use it as a type of measuring stick to check a weapon in adjacency easily because we have no other weapons in the multi-tool. So we're starting at 1164. Let's put the pulse splitter in and the number goes up to 3142. Now let's add an S-class upgrade. Now we have 3601. Now if I put this upgrade next to the pulse splitter, you will see we get a coloured border around them both, and the potential damage number has jumped to 4126. So this border just shows you're getting an extra stat boost, which is the adjacency bonus. And this is why the damage potential number increased from 3600 to over 4100 just by moving them together. We have an extra 525 because they are adjacent to each other, and we're getting an adjacency boost. Now how much bonus you get from adjacency depends on what the upgrade or weapon is adjacent to. So say for example, we have an S-class upgrade next to another S-class upgrade. The adjacency boost amount will also be S-class. But if you put in an A-class next to an S-class, you'll get an A-class adjacency boost. And the same goes for B and C upgrades. Essentially whatever is the lowest will be the amount of adjacency bonus. So let's put everything in for the pulse splitter. Let's add all the space station upgrades, the S-class ones. You can add a maximum of 3 of this type, and I'm arranging them around the pulse splitter to get my best adjacency. Now as I said earlier, the other type of upgrades are the ones you can craft. And I've already made them, they're in my inventory, but here's where you find them after you learn the blueprints in the anomaly. So you can see there are 3 we can make for the pulse splitter. An A-class one with no class at all, and an S-class one. So that's where you get these, you craft them. Now I'll just install the ones that are crafted already. Now this A-class, all it does is add a ricochet bonus. There is no boost to the damage output. But you can see if we move this A-class next to an S-class, the damage potential number goes up from 7032 to 7293. And if we put it here next to the pulse splitter, we get 7658. So in this case we get a better adjacency boost by placing the A-class one next to the actual weapon, not the S-class upgrade. So to get the best adjacency, always play around with what goes next to what and check the damage potential number to see which gives you the best increase. This is how you get the best adjacency bonus and ultimately more damage from your weapon. Now let's add the one with no class. Again, there's no damage increase, all this one does is increase your ammo clip size. If we move it next to an S-Class upgrade, we still get an adjacency boost, and we're up to 7,941. Now if we move it here next to the A and the S-Class upgrades, we only get the same number. So again, move your upgrades around and see what works best for adjacency. And I'll just point out, this is just ammo capacity, it's not damage. The damage potential number goes up because of adjacency, but this won't actually increase your combat damage, it's just a bigger clip size. Just showing you that the damage potential number can be used for measuring things, but it's not your actual combat damage. Anyway, let's have a look at this last one. This upgrade gives your bullets fire damage of plus 80 for 4 seconds. But if we move it next to the S-Class upgrades, there is no border, and no difference to the damage potential. If we put it next to an A-Class upgrade, still no border and no change to the damage potential. Or if we put it down here. So for whatever reason, the developers decided this upgrade won't give you an adjacency bonus. And that's just the way this one is. Therefore you can place this anywhere in your loadout, this one does not need to be adjacent to the others. But I do promise you though, this upgrade does actually increase your damage output against enemies in combat with an additional 80 fire damage. Okay, so now you understand a little about adjacency, let's talk about the Supercharged Squares here. That's the purple ones. Now what these do is boost the stats of anything you place in there. So if we look at this S-Class upgrade, we get 11% increase in the fire rate, plus 12 in the clip size, minus 10% reload time, and plus 3% damage. Now all of these are good and do help us make the pulse splitter better, but for damage, look for the best damage numbers on your upgrades. Things like fire rate also help you deal combat damage, so base your upgrades on things like this. So let's put this in one of the Supercharged Squares here, and now look at the stats this upgrade is giving you. We go from 11% to 38% in the fire rate from this upgrade. The clip size increases from 12 to 15, minus 10% reload time jumps to 28%, and plus 3% on the damage has not changed. Now the reason I use the pulse splitter is you can see the damage percent number did not change. Now different weapons and upgrades will get damage increases if you supercharge them, just not for this weapon. As an example here, I have an upgrade for the Neutron Cannon. You can see damage is at 13%. Now if I put it in the Supercharged Square, you can see damage does go up to 16%. Which brings me to my next point. Just because the damage is higher, it doesn't necessarily make this weapon any better in combat. Each weapon has its pros and cons, and you need to see what works best for you against the type of enemy that you're trying to kill. So back on the Supercharged Squares. As you know, adjacency only works vertically or horizontally. This is why if you want to get maximum damage from a multi-tool or even a ship, you want all the supercharged ones in a square like this. This arrangement will give you the maximum adjacency boost. Now even the weapon itself can be supercharged. And you'll see the damage potential number go up, but the weapon itself has no visible stats to increase. But yes, this does make the weapon more powerful, and you should almost always supercharge the weapon itself over other upgrades. Like I said before, it's a matter of moving the weapon and its upgrades around and seeing what gives you the best increase in the damage potential number in order to measure its overall effectiveness. So let's put everything in for the pulse splitter. As you can see, we now have a damage potential of over 24,000. Now let's swap the weapon and the A-Class upgrade, and damage potential drops from 24,000 down to 14,000. So supercharging the weapon itself is nearly always the best way to increase your damage. At any rate, that's about all you need to know about Supercharged Squares and Adjacency. And this is how you set up the weapon you want to use for maximum combat damage. Now a couple of extra things quickly that I would recommend for a combat loadout. You do have the ability to carry a secondary weapon. Having one of these can greatly help with your combat encounters. The main two are the paralysis mortar, which are stun grenades, and the plasma launcher, which are explosive grenades. Now the mortar really has only one upgrade that helps it, and as you can see there is no adjacency bonus, but it does add damage to any enemy that is stunned. So this upgrade will also work with the blaze javelin. The paralysis mortar is a really good weapon to use, especially against larger enemies like sentinel walkers. The plasma launcher can be awesome at dealing damage, especially when you're fighting groups of enemies, and you can add upgrades and get an adjacency boost. But because the explosion is timed, it can bounce off the enemy you're shooting at and blow you up instead. Try using this in a derelict freighter battle and chances are you'll be the one exploding. Ask me how I know. So it's best to use this as a mid to long range weapon. For me personally, I've blown myself up so many times with the plasma launcher, or it bounces past my target and misses, that I hardly ever use it. But in the hands of someone better than me, this weapon can have awesome results. And finally, here's another game tip that you may not know if you are new. You can find other types of upgrades in the game. You have autophage upgrades and sentinel upgrades as well. There are two basic types, one for your exosuit and one for your multi-tool. Unfortunately, the multi-tool ones only work for the Boltcaster. So if you use this weapon, getting these upgrades is a good idea. Now one of the best ways to get these sentinel upgrades is to use the salvage glass that you get from killing sentinels. You can see here at the bottom right of the screen that one of the options is to extract components. If you do this, you'll get a small range of items, but eventually one of them will be a sentinel upgrade. And just a reminder, these only work with the Boltcaster. Now that's out of the way, let's get to the fun bit and test the different weapons in combat. You can see here I have all the weapons and upgrades loaded into the rifle already, and I'll take turns supercharging each weapon and show you how they perform against the sentinels. And just saying, I'd describe my ground combat ability as average at best, as you'll see in the different combat videos coming up. Okay, so let's start out with the Scatter Blaster. This is basically your shotgun in the game. Great for short range, and this is the main weapon I like to use on derelict freighters. Pros of this one, it's got excellent damage and you can one-shot some enemies with it. Cons for this one, it's almost useless at any sort of range and can be hard to control if you keep your finger on the trigger. You can see it's pretty effective when you're on target, and just 2 shots for the first one. The best damage on the standard sentinel there was 2,170. So here's a bit of combat footage, and as you can see it does have a lot of kick if you fire quickly, but does really good damage up close. The reload time isn't fantastic, but it's not too bad either. Overall a great gun for close range battles, and I think this one is a lot of fun to use. Up next we have the Boltcaster. I like this one, it's a great alternative to the Pulse Splitter. This is basically your burst-fire M16 in the game. I would call this weapon a great all-rounder, as it can be used in any combat situation and it'll do well. Pros for this one, it does good damage with multiple shots, and it's good at all ranges. As for cons, the only one I can really think of is it does less damage per shot than the other weapons, but when used as intended, in short controlled bursts, its combined damage is actually pretty good. You can see it's very effective on target, and a couple of shots was all it took to kill the standard sentinel. And the best damage number there was 657. And again, here's some combat footage. Now the Boltcaster is a bit easier to control, but you can see it also has a little kick when you fire it. It has an excellent reload time, which is definitely handy when you're facing multiple enemies. Now the damage numbers for each impact are one of the smallest, but when you fire in bursts, as you see, it doesn't take much to drop an enemy when you're on target. Overall I like this, as I said it's a great all-rounder. It won't really excel in anything, but it'll get the job done well, no matter the combat situation. Up next we have the Blaze Javelin, and this one is basically your sniper rifle in the game. Obviously it's best at medium to longer ranges, as it does take a little time in between shots. Pros for this one, it does good damage, has a little stun effect for about a second or two, and rather than bullets, it charges with carbon. The cons for this one is the time between shots in combat, and it's not a good short range weapon, especially if you've got multiple enemies. You can see it killed the standard sentinel with 2 shots, smaller enemies it can 1 shot. Both shots did the same damage number at 1184 each, which is pretty good. Into the combat footage, and again you can see a bit of a kick when you pull the trigger, and the time between shots isn't great. It also stuns the enemy for a second, which can help a little in combat. Overall, I'd recommend you treat this one just like you would a sniper rifle, and it can be a really good addition to your loadout. Next up we have the Neutron Cannon, and you will find a lot of people love their cannon. It has some good damage numbers, and it has an area of effect as well. This is a weapon that works best at medium to longer ranges, though you can use it at short range. As like the Blaze Javelin, it does take time to charge, and you need to hold the button down for a bit to recharge it for the big damage shots for this weapon to be really combat effective. Pros for this one, it does good damage, can damage multiple enemies at once, and again, you don't need bullets, this one charges with carbon. Cons for this one, you need to hold the trigger down for a little bit of time to charge it up for decent damage. This one took 3 shots because I didn't fully charge every shot, but the damage number from the full charge shot was 1060 against the standard sentinel. And here's some combat vid. The main issue with this weapon, as I said already, is to get the best damage, you need to slow down your fire rate a bit and fully charge the weapon for each shot. Overall, this is a really fun weapon to use, and it is good in combat. Used properly with a full charge between shots though, and the cannon's pretty lethal. And finally, we have my personal favourite, the Pulse Splitter. This weapon is most like a full auto machine gun. Again, I would describe this one as a great all-rounder, as it will easily handle anything the game throws at you in any situation. It can be used long range, but its bullets do take a little time to get to the target, so sometimes you may need to lead your aim at longer ranges. Pros for this one, good damage from multiple shots and the fire rate, and also does bonus fire damage. Cons for this one, it chews through ammo like nothing else. You can see against the standard sentinel it's very effective, but the main shot damage there was only 284. But it's the fire rate that makes this weapon so lethal, and you can see how quickly it chewed through that sentinel. And here's some combat footage. Overall, like I said, this is my personal favourite. It can be a little difficult to control as it kicks a little when you first pull the trigger, but once you walk your bullets onto the target, this absolutely shreds enemies. I love it. I can't say it enough though, I strongly encourage you to try the different weapons out for yourself and see what works best for you. Anyway, if you made it this far, I just want to say thanks heaps for sticking around. Please don't forget to give the video a like if you found it helpful, and maybe even subscribe to see more from me. As I said at the start, I really do appreciate it, thank you. Take it easy guys, and good luck with your quest for the ultimate damage multi-tool. Hope to see you next time. Cheers guys.